listening to Enlivening Musings, a podcast to enhance your life so you live fully alive. Sponsored by the Pleasure Fairy app. Download it for more support. Welcome to Enlivening Musings. I'm Crystal.
And I'm Katie.
And today we are talking about the concept of both and. We live in a crazy world, and it is full of polarity, and in so many realms it can get like super divisive. and you know, something that has really impacted my life in the last couple years, and then I realized this has been like an evermore thing for me, is being more of a both and person. Because you're not making it where one thing is the only truth or one thing is the right way, the right thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So how can you invite that into your life, being a both and person? And it's funny for me because I had somebody talking about this somewhere, and I was just like, yeah, in the last couple of years, this has totally changed my life. And then after I wrote that, I was sitting there thinking, I have always been like this because I'm a Gemini with a Libra stellium, and I always see both sides of the story, you know? I'm always looking at both sides, and I sit there and I navigate all of that from that. You know, it's one of those things where in certain situations, I feel like I've been a good mediator because I can explain to one person how the other person, you know, almost like translating it when something like that is happening. Anyway, do you have any thoughts in the moment?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I feel like as I've gotten older, I've become more of that, like both and. I think early on in my life, I was very like black and white because I think that's just the way I was raised, and just like this is right and this is wrong. You know, strong religious background.
Right.
Tends to do that.
Well, and I think that whole right, wrong thing, I think that's one of the first things of dismantling it, you know, because you're sitting there looking at it from that lens. And if this is right, then that has to be wrong. And not, you know, when I think about people who've stepped into meditation or different forms of trying to like be enlightened, you know, one of the first things they realize is that like things just are. And in those opposites, there's often this harmony because they play with one another. You know, those two different polarities, they go back and forth. And within this is that, and within that is this.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, if it's a new concept to you, then this is like, what do they mean? But if you're starting to get into that, then it's easier to really understand and be like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think into that just comes a lot of compassion, self-compassion and compassion for others when you can start to see both sides. And I think it's just super important, and it's really, really needed right now for all of us just to be there and support each other. And it's like to me, that's like a spiritual practice, is to keep coming back to that non-judgment. Like say both and, is that the thing? Both and. Yeah. And just meeting people where they're at, because everyone, like I think of it as like a human interaction, because everyone is on their own path, their own spiritual journey, their own, like we've talked about before, our own lifetimes. And some of us might be on a first lifetime. Some people might be on a 10.
Right.
So you just got to like meet people where they're at, and where it is where you're supposed to be. And same thing for yourself. I think self-compassion is one that I keep trying to come back to and be like, well, this is just where I am, and that's okay. Right.
Well, and as you're talking about that stuff too, it makes me think about just how both things can exist also. You know, I could ask for forgiveness and feel really sorry, and you may or may not forgive me. You know what I mean? Or I'm trying to think of some other good examples. You know, you can be really angry at somebody and know that it's going to work out, and or deep down you still have love for them, and you're just in a tough place. Or, I just feel like so often it just goes, only one of these can exist.
Right.
But it's not that, like they all can exist. It all can exist.
Right. It just makes me think of like, just the idea of, and we're going to talk a little bit more about like being in different dimensions of healing and things like that and timelines, but it makes me think of that too, of how, there can be different things happening on different dimensions of time. And so, I mean, I don't even know how to even speak on it because it's kind of out of that part of the brain that knows how to intellectualize it. But like there's just always could be different things happening at the same time with our own self and our own evolution and our own spiritual process. And it's not just a straightforward thing.
Right. And so then you saying that makes me think about how like archetypes and how we can be all of the different things. Like obviously in my realm, I think a lot about like the Madonna whore archetypes, they seem like opposites and both exist within the same person.
Yes.
Same with being all of the other roles that we are, mother, daughter, partner, any of that stuff, business person, any of it. Like we're all of it. It's all of it. It's not these segregated things or into that separation. And so it brings that wholeness into the picture.
Yeah, I think that, I see that a lot in like women in motherhood, right? It's like, I remember feeling that same way, like, and my husband looking at me that way now, like, well, now you're a mother. So like, that was it, and it like, during that those first few postpartum months, weeks, even years, like you really can feel really like that's it. And almost kind of, I want to say stuck because it doesn't necessarily feel bad, but it feels confusing to people because they're like, you feel like you lost your past self. So that is kind of a tangent, but it's just like, then there's just that whole part of, well, who am I now? And I can be both and all of these things. You see that a lot in like pop culture now too. A lot of like, you can be a mother and still be sexy and like all that stuff I feel like is coming up a lot. So maybe it's the whole consciousness coming up and realizing like, you don't have to just be like Betty Crocker housewife.
Right.
You can be all the things in different ways.
Yeah.
So
something just like tip, trick to apply this to your life is often I find saying and instead of but. So it's like, I see that you're playing with all of this stuff, making this area all crazy, and we want to clean this up by 5 because we're having a party, or whatever it is. Or I understand that you're feeling, I don't know, ignored or whatever, and I'm just needing to get some stuff done. Then I'll give you more attention. And I'm working through my own thing right now. Then I'll come back to you, or whatever it is, So I find that shifting things so that you can bring your conscious mind into yes, that, and this.
I like that.
Yeah. It's pretty neat practice.
It is, because I feel like a lot of times, like I notice with my kids, I might be saying, well, like I know this and this and this, but da 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 da.
Right.
And then it feels a little icky to me because I feel like it's like when you're apologizing to someone, you're like, well, I know I made you mad, but.
Well, yeah. I mean, so many people out there always talk about how the word but negates everything that you said before it, So I love you, but okay, so you don't love me.
Yeah. It's interesting how words can just change so much. And that's such a common way of just, of default talking, of saying something, but
Right.
So I like that. It's a new practice. Plus then it makes like things a little more novel, like you say. So when I do it, it's going to make me think about it and feel different and have a different experience.
And help you rewrite all the things. It's cool.
Oh yeah, that's a good little tip. I like that. I can feel how I could use that and play a little bit more.
Awesome. More play. Definitely. Yes. I want more of that. More of that, please.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, all of you go ahead and play with that as well. And if you have any questions or need some support, you can reach out on Instagram at Enlivening Musings. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. You can find us on Instagram at Enlivening Musings. Connect with Crystal on her app Pleasure Fairy. Connect with Katie on her website, wellnesswithkatie.com. Enjoy.